Hello, everybody, and welcome to Digitalize Africa. This week, we're having a talk with Babajide Okusanya, who is originally from Nigeria, but currently in Argentina, and how he got there, we'll see that in a second. How's it going?
Hi, Pam. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. It's going great over here. Nice weather, nice scenery, and I'm really happy to be here.
So Nigeria to Argentina, what's the journey?
Well, it's been, here's the thing. I left Nigeria about 8 years ago or so. I went to study in Ghana in the University of Cape Coast. I studied IT. Then from there, I moved to Belgium. I was working with a youth organization called ISEC. And then from Belgium, I got on a traineeship program here in the US, which ended about 2 months ago. And then I got relocated here to Argentina. So this is my first month in Argentina, actually.
Welcome, then.
Thank you very much.
So, as you guys heard, he's right now based in Argentina. Gita works with IT Convergence as a web developer and a digital marketing specialist.
Yes, that's me.
So you're two people in one person.
Yeah, actually, I'm a lot of people in one person because it gets crazy because I deal with all sorts of things. But yes, you could say that.
Awesome. So you already told us that you studied IT and like web development. How did you then decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do, what I'm going to continue, what I'm going to do as my profession? What got you into that originally?
Well, for me, I've always liked computers. Whenever I got the chance to open a computer or to write a program, I did. I remember in university, I sit in my room and I built a video game after my first semester. And so, I mean, I loved development, but then I started to see that web development is something that's very agile, it's something that's very fast-paced and fast evolving as well. And that is also where everything's going nowadays. So I picked up with PHP and Java, and then everything has just been uphill from there. And yeah, so that's how I got into it.
Awesome. So, I mean, from non-technical people, web developers are usually considered very technical people. So tell us.
I think I've got my glasses here to prove it too. I know I write code and everything.
Perfect. That confirms our stereotypes.
Yeah, it's true. Okay.
So tell us how you've been able to link the skills of web development with digital marketing.
Well, it's kind of crazy because they're usually seen as two very different worlds. For web development, it's very, very technical. For digital marketing, it's seen as very practical, more business oriented. Now, I studied IT, and in my university anyway, IT is seen more as a solution oriented program and less as a more system based program whereby you're like developing the core components of a computer. So that sort of gave me like an entry point into understanding the business world a little bit. But then I started to work with ISEC, as I mentioned, which was a youth organization ever since I was in university, and I was understanding the organization more, and I was applying my technical skills into driving the organization better, building whether it was better spreadsheets, some websites, some designs here and there. So I came to realize that rather than just being a developer, I'm more of somebody who enjoys creating solutions with technology. And before you can create those solutions, you need to understand the requirements or what kind of things you're creating solutions for. So once I started to get interested in business processes, I figured I could just apply my technical skills to it, and then here I am.
Perfect. So often if we digital marketers try to communicate with web developers, there's a lot of misunderstanding and often a lot of frustration, and it's just sometimes a huge chaos. So if there's something now, speaking from you as a web developer side, that you would like digital marketers to know when communicating with you as a web developer, what would that be?
Well, just something like as you said, is it gets really crazy sometimes. So one good thing to note is that as a web developer, I see things in, or me, not just me, but people generally who develop programs try to see things as a complete system. So usually one major issue that happens is that people just come up with very interesting ideas. Oh, let's do this. But then as a web developer, you have to try to see, okay, fine, where exactly can that fit in? So usually by understanding sort of an existing system and knowing exactly how to fit in, I think that would be a great start to convert to having like a very meaningful conversation with the web developer. Also understanding that development is also, apart from being system oriented, is also sort of very logical oriented. So just adding something in there will probably create an impact somewhere else. So trying to see it from that perspective might help bridge the gap with communication, try to improve things a little bit better, I think. But also everybody has very different styles. So I would just recommend having a sit down and listening to one another and trying to listen to each other's languages or trying to communicate in each other's languages. Because also I would say from the developer side, sometimes we developers can go crazy and just try to throw in tech terms in there and just say like the server and blah 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 blah. But I would say also it's also an approach from the developer as well to try to also see things from the business side of things.
So when there's like a situation where you feel really stuck and you don't know what like the other person wants, let's say in digital marketing, what would you do?
I would try not to cook. The reason why is because usually if I try that, then I would probably end up doing the exact opposite. Then I'd have to redo it or something. So just I'll try to either try to talk to somebody else or try to explain things from my perspective, see if that matches what they're saying. Because if it doesn't match, then it means that we have a problem somewhere. So either we try to re-explain it again in different terms, trying to use different analogies to try to get the message across, or trying to get somebody in between who can probably translate.
Mediate.
Yes.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit more about the web development side of your work. When you develop something and you like to test things, what browsers would you usually use?
Well, one awesome thing is that, well, with Google Analytics, it gives me a background on the kind of browsers that people are using generally for to access our sites. So, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer. I'm not really a fan of Internet Explorer, but Internet Explorer,
Who still
Edge.
is?
I know. But yeah, I mean, just the primarily common ones. I don't necessarily test across board for things such as Opera and things like that because most of our users don't come in through there. But most of the time, if it works in Firefox, it will work on Opera. So I test on the ones where most of our users come
Okay, perfect. And so how do you develop for SEO best practices?
from. Okay, now with regards to that, I try to use tags that are because now with HTML5 coming into the picture, it makes things really awesome for SEO purposes. Like Google meta tags being able to read certain things from the page, probably without actually being on the page, describe the page better. So when I'm developing in the back end, I try to read up on different kind of tags that could fit into those situations. For if instance, if it's an event that works based on time, I try to use a time tag and put in the meta information in there. Apart from that as well, because it's not just building, it's also implementation as well. I try to work with the people who implement it to try to make sure that certain things are applied to make sure that it's SEO friendly.
Okay, so in terms of if we stick a little bit with SEO, what would you say is like the latest, most important thing to consider with SEO? Because it changes a lot and it's very hard to keep up on track with it. So what's like the latest, most important thing you have an eye on?
Well, actually, something that I would say that I sadly just recently discovered is the fact that keywords are not a thing anymore. That's something that probably a lot of people would probably not know. But whereby they say, oh, putting this keyword into my page and yada yada yada. That's not really a thing anymore. Search engines, they work based on the content. So depending on how relevant the content is, it knows how to rank it. So primarily having good content and having good tags in there would help, and well, of course, having good traffic. And there are a lot of factors that go into it, but having those in there would definitely help out with that. So keywords are not a thing. Just putting it out there.
So it's more like going into the context, specialized area.
Yes.
Mega Mike Jr. says keyword strategy creates the content.
Mm-hmm. So yes, exactly. So primarily placing that into the content itself will help in making it more accessible. But because there was a while ago that the meta tag having keywords in there, people would try to throw in words into that little block and hope that it would show. But from the research that I discovered quite not so long ago, that isn't the thing.
Cool. So just a note for everybody that's watching, if you feel like you can add something for the topic or you have a certain question, you can just click on call in and join the conversation. If you put a question in the chat, we'll get to that after we're done with the questions in case it just doesn't fit in right.
Okay.
So let's continue. You already talked a little bit about Google Analytics.
Mm-hmm.
Which measurement tools or analytics do you like to use most for your client sites?
Well, I would say that I don't really have client sites per se because I do work primarily with the company I'm with. But for this, I use primarily Google Analytics. We use a marketing automation tool called Marketo. And with those two together, we're able to pull off rich information about user behavior. And one extra thing, which probably I'll go into a little bit later, is having your own pre-built way of gathering data. Because tools will give you the generic way, but then knowing exactly what you want to monitor would go a long way in knowing how to use those tools. What I do right now is is having sort of my own custom built applications in that run on our site that is able to pull off multiple kind of data and send that back into Google Analytics and on Marketo. We're able to pull up some rich reports from there.
So these custom built applications or measurements, what would that be? What are you missing from like Google Analytics?
It's not really missing. It's just more like adding to it. Like for instance, special events that are specific to the site that I would want to monitor, like say downloads, like say form registration, like say searching for a particular thing within our own inbuilt search tools. Like say what else? Like say if they view a collection of pages that we refer to or regard as like a category, it helps in just making reporting a lot better.
Perfect. So in terms of your development work, how do you measure the success of it?
Well, if I get a lot of emails saying this is not working, which I get sometimes, then I know probably it didn't come out so well. But one major way that I use to measure what I build is, well, knowing its usability, how frequently do people use it, how frequently is it accessed. For some things that I built, I'm 100% sure that they are not being used, but then some of them are built with the future in mind, with future requests. So how do I know exactly if they're used? How exactly do I know if they're successful? It's primarily if they are used. So if people request for it, if like we're able to pull off certain reports out of certain things, if it's primarily being used, and we're able to pull off reports out of it.
And the least possible email requests.
Yes. Oh, those are nasty.
Awesome. So let's switch a little bit to the digital marketing side of your role. What is like the area of digital marketing you have so far specialized in?
Well, I would say it goes back to building custom reporting tools, because with that we're able to understand a lot of things a lot better. This is a very data-driven age, and having the right amount of data will help you improve your strategy and where you're going to with that. So I would say that where I've certainly found a really, really good, exciting place to play in is building custom applications that run off traditional tools, just like Marketo and Google Analytics. What I mean by this is that most of these tools, they have something called an API that have rich functionalities that you can do pretty much whatever you want to do with it. So, for instance, Google Analytics, or for instance, Marketo comes with a feature that says, say, add this person to say one campaign, yeah. But then you want to build something that says you want to add 10 people at a time or something. If you want to come up with like a crazy idea that doesn't come in pre-built with it, you can pretty much do it with the API. So that's where I kind of get myself really involved in. I try to interact more with our marketing specialists and to try to know more about what they're doing. I try to convert that into code to make my job and their jobs a lot better. And that's something I really enjoy doing, just building custom features that integrates with our marketing tools such that it can improve our digital marketing networks.
I think that's a very nice angle, because you're not trying to go completely the other side of the skills you have, like, I don't know, developing and then ad creation or copywriting. So you found a really good way of combining these two, I would say.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it took a while to figure it out, but yeah.
Perfect. So we are right now done with the questions.
Okay.
If people would like to get in touch with you, how could they best do that?
Well, they could reach me. I have a site. It's jide.focus.me. Apart from that, there's also my email address. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. So yeah, those are primarily the way. I'm also on Instagram. I post random pictures all the time. So that's the most ideal way to reach me.
Perfect. So I think, oh, there's somebody calling in. Let me add you.
Caller.
Hey, Mike.
Hello, Mike.
We cannot
hear you.
Sir,
we can't hear you.
Take your headset out, maybe?
Try that. How about now?
Yes.
Yes, it works. Right. Where are you based?
I am out of Ocala, Florida.
Florida.
Wow.
Florida. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So, where are you guys at?
Well, I'm currently in Argentina.
Nice.
And I'm in Austria.
Oh, sweet. All right. So, I actually had a few questions for you. Being from the developer side of things, I'm more of the digital marketing consultant. I work a lot in digital marketing. I am dabbling more in the development side. I've been in development, but there's a lot more to it. It's so complicated with specializations in development that it can be kind of tedious to get involved with. So,
very true.
So with you, my question is more of like on an SEO standpoint. When you're developing sites, how do you monitor, gauge, and evaluate page speed performance in regards to quick response time for end users?
Okay, well, the first thing that I just primarily do, as I mentioned earlier, is to try to get familiar with certain tags that might be used to improve the kind of page it is, because what search engines use, they use different tags for the different kinds of content. I remember sometime last year through Google Webmaster Tools, actually, which is an awesome tool. And you can actually evaluate your page and try to see how you'd want the page to appear on search engines. So that's how I primarily got into understanding a bit of how the crawling works on pages. And with that, I can just transfer that to code. So what I would recommend, Google Webmaster Tools, it helps you know what kind of traffic you're driving in. You can evaluate your pages to know probably the page structure. If it's say an event page, or if it's a page that has certain call to actions in there that Google might want to help to show better in their search results, Google Webmaster Tools is a really cool tool for that. And then with that, they can also show you, say, the kind of tags that you can probably throw in there. And yeah, it's an excellent tool.
Right. Yeah, I actually use Search Console very frequently. It was originally called the Webmaster Tools, and being now adopted Webmaster Tools, and I think Google changed it to Search Console because they didn't want to have the same name. But as far as like like load speed from a developer standpoint. Like when you're developing a page, you
Yeah.
have to monitor how long it takes for it to call to the server. You know,
Yes.
how fast the page loads with the images, with all the JavaScript that's involved. There's tools out there to evaluate the speeds, kind of like for instance, Google Chrome's own
Yes.
web toolbox or web toolset. They have the ability to see the network and see how the pages are loading. But how do you consolidate if you're like incorporating JavaScript? How do you consolidate all these different calls for your CSS and your JavaScript to make your pages load faster, other than just routine images and things?
Okay. Well, there are some good practices with regards to how to implement JavaScript and CSS. Some very basic ones is to try not to have multiple files, because your page will try to have to load multiple resources at a time, which will make increase the load time. Also, same thing with the CSS, having like a million CSS files causes the browser to do all that. Also, having inline JavaScript kind of also slows things down as well, because the primary thing that needs to load is the HTML content, then the other functionality like CSS and JavaScript
Right.
gets loaded in there. Also, how you write your CSS and your JavaScript also plays a huge role in that as well, because there are some CSS that you could probably, depending on how you write it, with the right classes and the right ID, you could just consolidate something in one place rather than having a million lines, which would also increase the size of the file and thus increase the load time. Same thing with JavaScript, use functions. What I would also recommend as well is probably to use non-native tools like jQuery or AngularJS, depending on this tool, which I'm framework you're most familiar with, and try to use functions as much as possible, um, rather than probably trying to execute the same line of code multiple times in different places. It just gets really messy if you don't write the functions properly.
Right. Yeah. And I guess the reason why I ask these questions is there's this for user experience. There's been a huge push for mobile, and
Yes.
for all of our marketing intentions, we want to kind of have this mobile-centric mind to focus on mobile.
Yeah.
And most recently, with the release of accelerated mobile pages by Google and instant articles by Facebook, you know, those are all pushes to get our content out there in a mobile-centric way, kind of forcing us to do it because no one's really adopted proper techniques for consolidating JavaScript or CSS. So I guess that's kind of why I was asking this question from a developer
Yeah.
perspective. How would you approach that? But it's a good answer. Thank you.
Also, one thing that I didn't mention is has to do with the server itself. The server plays a huge role in that. How your server is configured to handle requests, how depending on what kind of sort of application whether it's a site that runs on PHP, Java, and so on and so forth. Those are things to consider when you are building, say, a site or an application. One thing that I can say safely is that Java runs slower than, say, PHP. So if you're going to be building a server-side application or something that's going to be handling requests, those are things that you might want to take into consideration and just try to look at best practices on speeding up how we handle requests. One more thing as well that I'll probably use to wrap up this question, which I recently discovered, which I've active in our site as well, is requests to third-party APIs. So say you are submitting a form on a site, and that data is going to a third-party application. Now your client has to wait for that response to happen, but then there's no need to burden the client with that kind of responsibility. The client just wants to interact with your content. The client just wants to interact with you. So you try to handle as much responsibility as possible and leave as little to the user. Same thing with features like recapture. Recapture is a burden on the user. That also has its own requirements to load up more JavaScript. But then if you can find a way to handle your own sort of validation, a way to block off robots on your servers, which is something that I also saw that implemented not too long ago, then the user has a faster experience. They don't have to take forever for a page, although they have to take forever for the form to get submitted. So interact with the content.
Right, right. Well, excellent. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome to stay on the call to hang up however you want. We'll
Okay.
just continue with Kalumami's question. She's saying, if there is one thing we would change about the way we market these days, what would make it on our list?
Let's see. That's a very interesting question. I would say, what would I change? I would say that probably I wouldn't say change, but rather adopt more is working with data, understanding the people that you were working with a lot more. That's something I know that Facebook does because they gather as much data as possible. If you look at your URLs, you'll see that they're constantly monitoring where your clicks are from and all this kind of things. And I wouldn't say change, but rather I'll say probably if more companies could adopt this so that they understand what people want a lot more, that would be excellent in improving user experience and knowing that you're delivering the right kind of content to the right kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are right now in the stage where there is, for example, in Europe, we're super, super careful about what we post, share with who, at what time, on what device, and it's just some things are very creepy for us.
Yeah.
And then there's countries like the US where, from our perspective, it seems like people are open to sharing everything. Like a lot of my friends from the US, they would share baby pictures where we're like, why would you do that? It's not, that kid can't do anything in the future and so on. And then you have the marketers, and you have all these ads that are shown to you, and you're like, why am I being shown these ads? I have no interest in this. Yeah,
kind of creepy sometimes.
Yeah, so we're right now on this change of how to make something that's been creepy to actually useful to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the path that I would make sure it happens a little bit faster than what we're at right now, because the change is too slow and much too creepy still. And in that process, we're also losing a lot of ad dollars that are very valuable to us.
Very, very true.
Mike, is there anything you would change?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I work at an agency, but I also do a little bit of independent contracting as a digital marketing consultant. So things that I would change, definitely looking into gathering more information and creating customer personas more frequently in the initial stages of marketing, rather than waiting down the road. So we used to do a lot of user testing, start implementing things and start testing how they perform. But as we all know, media is really fast and how it achieves your goals. And you don't sometimes get results instantly. And by the time you figure out what you need to change, the change has already happened. And then you have to reevaluate again. So more investment into actually building customer personas in the initial stages of marketing.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part. Perfect. So I think we're done with the questions here. Thank you, Cheetah, for joining us today on the talk.
And thanks for your question,
Thank you, Mike, for joining in. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. So.
You're welcome. Join in. The next one is in 2 weeks. We'll announce it probably on YouTube and here on Plob. So thank you, everybody, for watching. It was a pleasure. All the best to Argentina and the US from Europe. So we're very multinational today. It was a pleasure. Make sure you have a great day ahead, and I'll keep in touch. I'll see you soon, guys.
Bye.
Bye.